Hello and welcome to the Delphian Podcast.
Delphian is an artist-led nomadic gallery focusing on emerging and early career artists.
Each episode will feature a different art world practitioner, from artists and gallerists to collectors and curators.
If you like today's episode, please like, share and subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the Delphian Podcast. And this is the second instalment of the coronavirus special edition of Delphian Podcast, where we are in our office/house
In lockdown.
Yeah. And due to not being able to talk to any guests, we're interviewing each other. So with me today is Benjamin Murphy, the other half of Delphian Gallery.
Yeah, hello. Joining us today is the guest, me.
So, first of all, why are you an artist?
Why am I an artist? How did I know that question was coming? I suppose I'm an artist out of compulsion, really. I've always had this this compulsion to be creative in some way, and it doesn't feel like something that I have control over. So if I'm not doing something creative, I start to feel really anxious and antsy and quick to and annoyable, probably annoying to people around me.
I mean, it's quite annoying when you're doodling in your sketchbook watching films.
Yeah, exactly. I'm annoying in many ways. This is just one of them. But yeah, so when I was younger, I never had dreams of being an artist or even an interest in being an artist, really. But I always had like a boundless energy to do stuff, and it was often creative. So to begin with, it was skateboarding. I skateboarded for about 10 years until I broke my ankle, and at the time, I considered that as a career choice. And I think, in retrospect, I was good enough to believe that becoming a professional skateboarder was possible, but I don't think I was actually good enough for it to be possible. So in that sense, breaking my ankle was a bit of a blessing in disguise, maybe. I went to art college, because I didn't want to join the real world and get a job. And then went to university for the same reason, and then did a master's for the same reason. After skateboarding, I played a lot of music. I thought at the time that was going to be my job. And then I kind of just fell into being an artist, I suppose. It was never a dream, really, of mine.
And you moved to London to be an artist, basically, didn't you, originally?
Almost, yeah. I mean, I moved to London very spur of the moment. So I was managing a cocktail bar and living in Salford, and basically all within the same week, basically, the bar closed and my tenancy of my house was coming to an end, and I'd finished my MA. So I thought, maybe I'll move to London. And then within a week and a half, I think, I was here. So I just pretty much dropped everything, and spur of the moment, on a whim, kind of moved. And it wasn't even at that point necessarily to move to be an artist, but I think I wanted to involve myself in the art world. I didn't know in what sense. I got a job in a gallery to begin with.
Yeah. So when you first moved down to London, you were working in a gallery and you were putting on shows, and also you had your first solo show there, and you were doing lots of other things. It was quite a different way of working when you were doing it then, wasn't it, to what you do now?
Yeah,
a lot more on the street different. And...
Yeah, it was very different. I mean, I was, I suppose most of my decisions back then were born out of being incredibly skint all of the time. So I didn't have a studio, so I ended up doing a lot of scrappy drawings and stuff, and just around on the streets. And I worked at the gallery. I was kind of just like a general gallery assistant, I suppose, but I was running events and installing shows and managing parties that they did, like illegal raves down there, because it was in a basement space. So I was working at all those kind of things, and it was very good. It was a good stepping stone to integrate myself into the art world, I suppose. I met a lot of people through doing it. I got a lot of experience of what it's like putting on a show and what goes into it and stuff.
Yeah. Is there anything you wish you'd done more of or less of when you're starting out, when you're first beginning your career?
Yeah, there's a lot. I suppose I wish that I took it much more seriously, much more early on. I didn't take it at all seriously for a long time. I wish, one big thing that I wish is that I kept the details of everyone who bought my work and anyone who expressed interest in buying my work, because someone told me that they do that a few years ago in a spreadsheet. I thought, fuck, why haven't I been doing that? It's an amazing idea. So then I started to do it from that point. And I also started to retroactively go through all my email accounts and social media and find the details of these people to put in there. A lot of it is lost. I think there's about 4 or 5 years of exhibiting where I didn't keep track of anything like that. So a lot of those people are lost. And obviously, if you have a new show or do a new release, the most likely person to buy your work is someone who's already bought your work. So having that information is invaluable.
Yeah. Top tip there.
Yeah.
And recently you've been doing a lot of painting, which is quite different.
Yeah.
From what you were doing before.
Yeah.
Why the shift?
So I've been lecturing at university and I've been doing all of these feedback sessions and tutorials and crits and stuff with the students. And in those, they, I suppose they mainly, would come up with all these crazy ideas and then get really excited by them. And I'd get really excited by them and they'd go off and try them. And it would often lead to really exciting results. And since I've been exhibiting and because my work takes so long, I've pretty much been making work for shows. So my work I haven't really had freedom to experiment. And I started to become a little bit envious of the freedom to explore and experiment and just do whatever pops into your mind that the students have. And I was thinking to myself, I wish I had that. And I thought, actually, I do. So I thought, all right, I'm going to start saying no to a lot more shows. I'm going to basically just allow myself the freedom to do that, just experiment and make some new stuff. Because I kind of felt a little bit trapped in what I was making. Because once you start doing something and you've been doing it for so long, I suppose that's what people expect from you. So you feel like you have to keep doing that. So I decided, actually, fuck it. Like, the first person that needs to be excited by my work is me. And if I'm not excited by it, then nobody else is going to be. So I thought, all right, I'm just going to take some time off from doing what I'm usually doing. And I'm just going to make some paintings.
Must be really refreshing to be able to take hold of the direction of your career like that and sort of just...
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's, to begin with, it was a little bit frustrating because I was making some paintings and they weren't going where I wanted them to, and I was making a little bit of sculpture and I was talking to my driving instructor, shout out Kurt, and we were talking about sculpture at the time, but he said, like, well, surely if you haven't made sculpture before, you've got to make some shit ones before you start making some good ones. And that was like a revelation. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. Of course you do. So I'm approaching painting with the same idea in mind. So I'm painting a lot. I'm making a lot of paintings, and then I'm just scrapping loads of them. And once you kind of give yourself the freedom to know that, like, yeah, not everything I make is going to be good, then you can just plow through it. And like, you got to do anything for a while before you start getting good at it. So I think probably out of every 10 paintings I do, one of them is exhibitable. But that's great. That's like, because also then some of these old bad paintings I'm just reworking, and some of them I'm just slicing up with a Stanley knife. So it's like, it feels amazing, to be honest.
I've seen some of the works you've been doing recently. They're like total departure, also subject matter wise as well. They're like, a lot of your previous work's been very figurative, and now it's not so much. Well, some of the works anyway. Why do you think that's changing?
I think that's, again, another symptom of me just feeling a little bit trapped in in the consistency of what I was doing before. So a lot of my works, I think, if you were to look back on like the last 8 years of my work, I think most of it you can identify. Not if you couldn't identify that it was mine, you could identify that it was by the same person that did other works in that time period. So I kind of, without knowing it, was doing the same thing because I felt like I had to, I suppose. So once I realized that actually, like, I have the power to make the decision not to do that, I just thought I'm just going to do what is fun and what comes naturally. So I suppose it's been because I'm almost, I mean, I'm not going to stop doing any of that, and I haven't drawn a line under it or anything, but now that I have this like freedom that I suppose I always had, I'm just kind of using it to experiment, I think. Yeah. And also I don't, because I haven't painted before, like I'm painting in oils, and I was never taught that at art school or anything. I'm very, like, my paintings are very naive in style and technique. And when I first started it, I was trying to replicate the precision that I had with my other works, and I can't do it because I've never painted before. So then I decided I'm just going to embrace the naivety, and so the things that I'm painting are very intentionally very loose and very naive, I suppose. So that naturally makes me not want to paint things like figuration that I've been doing for 8 years or whatever, because everything has to be in the right place. And that's not what I really want from the paintings.
Yeah. So, question we asked quite a bit as well. What do you think's the biggest obstacle you've come across in your career so far?
Well, aside from the one that we've just been talking about, my own feelings of having to conform to what I have done in the past, etc. I suppose being skint. I was very skint for maybe the first like 5, 6, 7 years of my career. And I mean, I'm still a lot more skint than I would be if I was doing anything else. Like I reckon I'm on the same that I was on when I was running the bar back in like 2011.
Yeah.
So my salary hasn't increased at all I suppose it took a big dip when I joined the art world. It's gradually increased since then. But I mean, that's a real struggle for a lot of artists, I think. Especially because you got to hire a studio, and I've been very lucky that I've lived in live workspaces.
Yeah, the lift shaft.
Yeah, I lived in a lift shaft for I think 4 to 4.5 months, maybe.
That was great. It was a great space.
Yeah, so that really is how it sounds. I lived in a lift shaft, so it was a lift that didn't work, that was sat at the very top of the lift shaft, and I lived on like the bottom 2 levels of the lift shaft. It sounds bleak, but I really enjoyed it actually.
It was great. We built these levels inside it. It was like a treehouse inside.
It was in a gallery. It was in a gallery in East London that isn't there anymore. I think at the time they were trying to sublet it, so there wasn't any events happening in there. So I had a whole gallery, like basement gallery to myself. Basically, we had like skate ramps in there. And yeah, we had this little treehouse lift shaft type thing.
Good for parties.
Yeah. Or like, after a night out, heading back there.
Yeah.
Had like a Function One sound system. I mean, I didn't know how to use it, but some of the speakers I used, and you could get loud there because it wasn't a residential area and it was a basement. So yeah, I did love it. And
so, and over the last few years, we've been doing Delphian together as well, obviously.
We've been doing what?
Corona what? So
Delphian Gallery.
Delphinian. So in terms of curation, what would your ideal show be to curate if you had no restrictions or?
Right, this is going to sound wild considering the stuff we show, and I don't want this to be a critique of the work we do show, but it would be something very conceptual and very maybe performance-y.
Mm-hmm.
So like, say, early career Marina Abramovich, like Rhythm Zero is an artwork that I think about all the time. Santiago Sierra would be in there. Mona Hatoum would be in there. Cornelia Parker, maybe. It'd be really like almost uncomfortable exhibition of really trying artworks that a lot of the artwork that I like and write about is artwork that I don't actually like, if that makes sense. So like Santiago Sierra, some of his works are horrific. He basically exploits people as art. But the reason it's great is because it highlights to us how we exploit people in our everyday lives. So it's powerful, and I don't like that it's possible, but I think because it exists, it's powerful, and it has a real potential for instigating change. So yeah, there'd be a lot of really uncomfortable artworks in it, I think.
So you mentioned a few of your favourites there. What would be your one piece of artwork that's had the most impact on you ever? What's your favourite one?
Well, there was two questions there, and the answer to both of them is not the same. But the artwork that has had the biggest effect on me is, well, I think maybe Rhythm Zero by Abramovich, just because I think about it all the time, or Tracy Emin's Bed. The reason for that, so you also said your favourite at the end. So that's not my favourite artwork by any stretch of the imagination. But I remember it being the first artwork that I saw when I was at art college when I was 16 that wasn't a painting or a traditional like marble sculpture. And it was the first time, I think, that I realised actually anything, the crafting of an idea can be the creative act in making an artwork, and it doesn't have to be like this really technically precise, amazing display of craftsmanship. Like the craftsmanship can be the creation of an idea. So I think it might have been that.
Yeah.
But if you ask me what artwork I'd put on my wall, I think I can't even remember what it's called. It's called like Pregnant Woman or something by Lucian Freud. I think it's his wife, but I think she was like she was pregnant. I think it was his. I think she was about 19 or 20 in the photo. Really good painting. So yeah, that. Nice. Or just a Hernan Bass, any Hernan Bass painting. Or an Alice Neal maybe or something.
Yeah, Hernan Bass is amazing.
Yeah.
So was there one moment that made you realise you were an artist? You said just then that when you saw My Bed, that sort of opened your eyes to the possibilities of contemporary art. Was there a moment when you realised that you were an artist, or that being an artist was a possibility? I
can't remember the exact moment, but I remember it being a lot later than you might imagine. So it was after I'd started exhibiting. So when I finished my MA, I was exhibiting in cafes and bars and stuff, and I did a lot of that, almost like on commission. They would ask me to come in and do an artwork on their wall. Then I moved to London, and I did a tiny bit of that. I started doing them outside because I didn't have a studio, and it was just fun to like skate around and damage some property or whatever. And then because of a really big one that I did that got a lot of press, I was offered a solo show. Very soon, so my first ever exhibition outside of the cafes and bars or whatever, my first like exhibition in a gallery, I think was October 2012. Then my first solo show was November 2012. Oh no, maybe not October, maybe like August or September. I think it might have been summer. But yeah, anyway, within a few months I had a solo show. So I mean, I wasn't ready for it. I really like what I did, and I like the show, and I don't regret anything that I did for it, but I had no idea what I was doing back then. Some might argue that I don't know. Maybe I don't. But yeah, so it was after that I started getting asked to be in shows, and I thought, kind of crept up on me that it was possible for it to be a career, but I think I didn't think of myself as an artist until after that. And
in those initial years, you did a lot of exhibitions. I remember going with you to openings almost every week.
Yeah.
And being included in lots of group shows and stuff. Do you think looking back, do you think that was a good thing to sort of jump into the art world head first like that and involve yourself as much as possible?
Yeah, I think I'm like an all or nothing kind of person. So I think for me it was necessary. And I think I learned a lot in those first couple of years that I was doing that, because it was entirely new to me. Like I studied graphic design as well, so I didn't really wasn't involved in the art world up in Manchester. I did an MA in contemporary fine art, but that was all like writing and theory. What was the question? Yeah, so I mean, if artists were to ask me, should we do that at the beginning of our careers? I'd probably say yes. Someone once told me, I think it might have been Frankie Shea, said like you should do every opportunity that is offered to you as long as you aren't being exploited until you get to the point where you're in a position to start saying no to things. So I would maybe advise people do that. Just like, I think if you know where you are and you know where your career is headed and you're on a good trajectory, and then is the time when you can start maybe saying no to things. But I think if you're just waiting until the time when you're perfectly ready and your work is exactly where you want it, and you feel like you're completely ready, then you'll never do anything. So I think jumping in at the deep end, doing a load of shows, doing a lot of bad work. Like a lot of my work back then was terrible. I couldn't really draw even, like if I look back at my old works now. But yeah, I don't regret it. I think it was what I needed to start me off.
I think some of the shows that you did back then were really interesting as well. The way just even works in progress shows and stuff. And when we did that sketchbook show.
Yeah, I think I maybe broke a few rules just because I didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did an exhibition of 7 years worth of sketchbooks, and like 90% of the stuff in there was terrible because it was all sketchbooks.
Do you remember how many pieces were in it? It's got to be like a couple hundred.
A few hundred, yeah. We just like strung up. And I remember actually, you probably don't remember this, but I was so skinned back then that I had to work out a way of hanging all these things. So we basically put screws in the wall and then string across. And we had to use actual pegs. And I didn't have any money for pegs. So you bought a load of pegs. And then I think we sold like the drawings for like 50 quid each.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And then once I'd sold some, I could pay you back for the pegs.
I don't remember that, no.
Yeah.
I remember going to the that one of those everything shops on Hoxton Street to buy loads of pegs.
Yeah, because we had to buy like 300 or 400 pegs, I think.
Yeah. God, that feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, it does.
What would be, so in terms of your own work, what would your ideal show be now? If you now that you're saying no to more shows and you sort of feel like you've got a bit more control over your career, if what would at this time, what would be your ideal show to do?
Of a show of mine?
Yeah.
I suppose it would be, I think it'd just be a show of painting. Although I'd like to, so my solo show that was we spoke about in what will be the last episode, I wrote a play. I included a page from the first draft of that in the show. So I would like to include other things like that aren't just a two-dimensional visual artwork. And it involves some kind of installation-y element. So for most of my shows, I've done artworks that come outside of the frame of the artwork and come onto the gallery walls. It'd be like that. Do you remember Morella? Show I did with Pang and Sophie Mason. Yeah. So that was a show that we did in a secret venue that was, you had to go through a bookshop, say a password, and then you open this door and you're in this like all black and white, completely painted space where we painted on the walls, the floor, the ceiling. I can't remember if we did do the ceiling.
Yeah, the ceiling was done.
Yeah.
I think.
And then we hung works on top of that. I'd like to do something like that again, but I suppose updated so that it fits well with my work now. Yeah.
I mean, even for some of your last shows, you always include works on the wall and tape onto the wall and stuff. Yeah. So I suppose that's a continuation from them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of a show where we had complete freedom to do whatever we wanted with the space. So like even nowadays, like galleries are very reluctant to just let you paint a wall black because of how difficult it will be to get it back again. Yeah. Whereas in that space, we painted the walls, the floor, the ceiling all black. So we basically had a space. The person who owned the space was like, do whatever you want. So yeah, I don't know if I've had that absolute freedom since then.
Yeah. Do you think that would be something that you'd have to do yourself then, to have that element of freedom?
Yeah, maybe.
Rather than a gallery put it on for you.
Yeah, I mean, when you do something with a gallery, the install times are often really short because they've
Yeah.
got to take a show down. They don't want to be closed for too long, and they've got to get a show up again. Whereas for that show, I think we were painting in the space for like three to 4 weeks maybe.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine a gallery giving me a month to install a show. I suppose probably would have to do it myself.
Obviously, another one of our big questions is, what one piece of advice would you give to an emerging artist or curator?
Don't be a prick.
That's a nice, easy one.
Yeah, a lot of them are. I mean, I'm sure I have been at times in my life, but don't be. I think with being an artist, similarly to how I'd imagine it is for being, say, an actor or a musician, it's very performative, and I think artists often are very conscious about the persona that they put across and how they are perceived by people. So rather than, say, in some industries where you are judged entirely on your work and nothing else, I think in the arts, you're also judged on who you are and what you are. And so I think a lot of artists put across a certain persona that is intended to show success, but I think it can often just mean that they've become a bit of a prick. I think so I think that should be avoided, probably. I tried to avoid it myself. I'm sure I'm a prick in some senses sometimes, but I try not to be. But I guess it's probably hard because I think people must think I need to look like all of my shows are selling out, and I don't need. I think a lot of these specific artists are thinking like, I need to look like I don't give a shit about sales, or I don't need anyone else because I'm doing so well. Because that is almost how. It's almost like what's the word? It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think like collectors especially expect artists to be selling well. So I think artists try and give that impression to almost to the extreme where they act like everything is amazing all the time. It becomes a part of who they are. Like sometimes, not all artists obviously, but this certain brand of artist, that it's all about the persona. I think, avoid that. Because I think also people who are interested in your work want to know about you and your personality. And so that's not necessarily like, that's not just this persona that you want to put out there, this very heavily edited social media presence. It's everything. So like when I talk about my paintings and kind of not knowing what I'm doing, and I'm embracing the naivety because I don't know what I'm doing. That's almost an uncomfortable thing to say because obviously I've been working as an artist for like 8 years now. And there's almost this compulsion to be like, no, I'm brilliant at everything. Yeah. But actually, no one is. Like,
no. And I think it's healthy for people to be able to admit that things aren't always good. Yeah. Like nothing's going to be perfect all the time. It's the same in any aspect of life, isn't it? So.
Yeah, but I think in the arts, people often feel like they have to pretend like it is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, everyone's always really busy, and everyone's always just had a really good show, and everything's always fantastic all the time. And sometimes it isn't. So. Yeah. And there's no shame in that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't be a prick, and don't try and act like you're just the most talented, gifted, successful person ever, because that just it's not a good way to live your life. But also B, people don't like it.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think that.
Right, we're ending on "Don't be a prick," are we?
Don't be a prick. Yeah. So the coronavirus special part 2. Yeah. Don't be a prick.
Yeah. That
goes with stockpiling toilet roll as well.
So yeah. If you stockpile toilet roll, you are a prick.
Yeah. Right. Goodbye.
Bye.